You stupid bitch. Yeah, you're a stupid bitch. You stupid bitch. Welcome to another episode of Stupid Bitches Say What, the Aussie podcast about everything and nothing, but always with wine / other things, as in alcoholic things, not smoky things, and your hosts, Sean Hipkins and Skye Lee College.
Come on down. The Price is Right. Remember that? Anyway, sorry, I digress. This week, it's True Crime Australia. Listen in as Sean discusses the 1966 mysterious missing children's case that rocked the nation, the Beaumont Children, the three siblings that disappeared from Glenelg Beach just outside Adelaide in South Australia, and many theories and hoaxes that followed. While I cover the case of serial rapist and murderer Leonard John Fraser, aka the Rockhampton Rapist, who terrorised women and young girls in the late 90s.
Fucking Rocky.
Yeah, I know. It's a really horrible story too. What are you drinking, Sean?
Well, Skye, to follow on from my and other things, I was referring to alcoholic substance, and this is I don't think that worked so well. It's a fizz, a hard fizz. It's a seltzer. I have a passion fruit and guava sparkling hard seltzer, 77 calories, 99% sugar-free and gluten-free. No wheat was used in the production of this sparkling drink.
Sticking with the low-cal alcohol. So how is the challenge going? Have you lost any weight? Are you weighing in weekly, or did you do it at the end?
No, it's a weekly weigh-in, and it's going pretty good. The first week I lost just over 1 kilo. The second week I lost over 3 kilos in the second week alone. Yeah, but then the third week I didn't lose anything, and the fourth week I lost 400 grams, I think. So we've got another weigh-in tomorrow. So I'm hoping for a bigger number again.
Which was the week that you had a dirty kebab and chips when we went out drinking?
Was that 2 weeks ago?
That was 2 weeks. It wasn't last weekend. It was the weekend.
That was the week. Well, that was after I had weighed in that morning, that Saturday morning.
So that was the week when you lost the 3. So maybe that's why you didn't lose any weight, but because of the kebab.
It could.
The salve.
It is plausible.
We drank a lot of salve that night.
We were doing double salves, yeah. Can I get 4 salves, please? It was just too much of a lineup at the bar.
I know. We were just being efficient, God.
Exactly, helping everyone out, including the bar tab.
Yeah, that's it.
So what are you drinking, pray tell, Skye?
Look, what I'm drinking this evening, I'm not proud of it. But it's something called a rock, paper, scissors. Sauvignon Blanc 2021 is $5.50 from the bottle shop.
Nice.
It was the cheapest salve I could get. So last night Tyler and I felt like having a little drink, and as you know, I get paid monthly, which is absolutely fucked.
Torture.
So when you get to the a few days before payday, it gets a little bit tight. So we wanted to have a drink, and I went and got a couple of bottles of wine, the cheapest that I could, and then I ended up having 1 glass of a cheap wine and going, it's making me sick, I can't keep drinking. Tyler smashed a whole bottle of salve.
Tyler.
I was going to take a photo and send it to him. Like, I finally cracked him. He's finally drinking white wine.
Oh, this is all right. This is.
So I haven't had a sip yet. But in saying that, I've actually seen this brand on menus and things when I've been at restaurants before. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've recognized it. So it's $5.50 a bottle.
So the markup must be horrendous.
And they're passing it off at, $10, $11 a glass, for fuck's sake. So I've drunken it when I've had no choice. So here we go. Let's have a little sip around and see if I die. Oh, the smell of it wasn't great going in.
Oh, darling. And that was it's an already opened bottle. It's had time to breathe and everything.
Oh, gosh, nah.
Keeps you honest.
Yeah, that's not a great It's not a great. Look at me, the wine snob. I can't drink a cheap bottle of wine anymore. It has to be between $15 and $20 at least.
I
Please.
understand. We've gotten classy in our old age. What about the devastating news that fucking white wine's set to soar the price of it?
Oh my God, I was literally like, fuck my life, because fuel's gone up. Fruit and veg is just ridiculous. Groceries are just ridiculous. Everything
Interest
seems to be
rates have
going
gone up 3 times in 3 months.
And now they're going to fucking touch our alcohol. Fuck you, fucking
I know.
inflation, and whoever's responsible for inflation, you can go fuck
Driving me nuts. I got a pay rise for the first time in 2 years. But all of that, the extra money I'm going to be getting, all the money I'm going to be getting each fortnight is going straight up onto the mortgage, the fucking groceries, and the fucking electricity bills. So, I mean, it's nice that I don't not have it, but it's just like, for fuck's sake.
And once you reach a certain amount, it doesn't really matter that much because it just goes to tax, right? Every increase that you just get taxed even more. So it really gets all taken. You end up with like $1 or couple of dollars extra a week. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tyler just sent me a message. I'm always, he's at football tonight. I'm always worried he's going to be fucking injured.
Yeah.
So like, as soon as I see a message, I'm like, I can't believe you tell me you're on the way to the hospital.
Brown paper bag. Breathe into a brown paper bag.
Rugby union is a very rough fucking game.
It is.
So yes, that's what I'm drinking. Super gross, but you know me. I have tenacity.
Soldier on.
I'll push through.
You do have tenacity. Give me a T. Give me a 10.
Is it an A or an E? Tenacity.
T-E-N. Yeah.
Tenacity. I just sounded out.
And how's your week been as well? Besides the tax season win.
Well, look, yeah, that's been a bit of a great thing because I think, again, I've talked about this before, but I've got a lot of medical bills still. So that's pretty much going to clear them all for me.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
I felt just such a weight coming off my shoulders to go, you know what? We're back in the green.
Yeah.
Plus, we've had the wedding. Plus, we moved states. You know, it's been cost after cost.
It's been an expensive year.
Yeah, it's not like we're destitute or anything. We both earn really good money, but just to not be scrambling because we're finally paid off some debt that we had, it's going to be awesome. So that's great week in that regard. I just finished a book called Treasure and Dirt that my sister recommended. It was about 500 pages.
Right.
So it's about fucking this thick, right?
Yeah.
And you know me, I've been reading it for probably 4 or 5 weeks, which is a long time for me to read a book. Especially when I'm loving it, I normally get straight into it. So it was a bit of a slow burn. It's one of those Australian books based out in a mining town where a murder happens and city cops go to investigate. Quite slow at times, but I could feel that it was going somewhere. And that's why, like, a few times I thought to myself, I'm going to give this up because I had other books that I wanted to read and I thought I'm going to ditch it. But I'm so glad I persevered because I finished it this afternoon. In my bath on my lunch break. So I started having baths because it's so cold in my house. When it's my lunch break, I go have a bath.
Good on you. Yeah.
To get warm. So I had my hour, because like an hour lunch break. So I had my hour lunch break reading my last 50 pages that I had to read. And the ending was explosive. Was such a great ending.
Wow.
I'm so glad I pushed through. I'm so glad I finished it because I ultimately loved it. It was still a little bit wordy for me. Like, I feel like he could have got to the point a little bit quicker and not been as descriptive. It was a bit too much, but still gave it a 4 out of 5 stars.
Oh, very good. Okay, I like that. Doing the rankings.
If you like Australia noir, I think they call it, that's the genre. Chris Hammer, Treasure and Dirt.
Chris Hammer, Treasure and Dirt. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Sounds interesting. Well, it's funny you finished your book. I finished a book this week again. So for our listeners, we're coming up to the end of season 1. We've got 1 round of each topic left. Season 1.
4.
Season 3. Yes. And for our next season, what we're going to do, introduce into pop culture, I think at this stage, maybe once a season, we'll see how we go, is Stupid Bitches Say What Book Club. And we do have a couple of books already lined up for our first episode, which is Boy Swallows Universe and Where the Crawdads
Which is my sister's all-time favourite book.
Really? Okay, cool.
She loves it, yes.
Yeah. And Where the Crawdads Sing. So
Yes.
We've got that
super
on
excited.
delivery, waiting for that to come. But I finished Boy Swallows Universe this week, and I haven't read, I'd say, a book in over a year. It's been a while, so
Yeah.
it was good to get back in the saddle. And this was a gift from Skye for my birthday, and I devoured the fucking thing. It's also 500 pages. And
I was totally impressed by your progress. Like every time, because when you said when you first started, I think you're only like 40 pages in and you'd fallen asleep or something. And I was like, oh yeah. And then a couple of days later, I spoke to you and you were like, I only had 200 pages to go or some shit. And I was like, fuck.
yeah, because usually I'd read a book on the bus to work, and it's a short trip in, so I'll get through 10 pages really on the way in and the way home each. And but this one I was staying up at night time, dedicating like half hour, 45 minutes to reading, and some nights I'd be there till midnight, just going chung 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 chung. It's really good.
They're the best books
to get into, yeah. So I'm not going to say too much about it, because we're going to review it.
But part of book club, I'd really love for some of our listeners to get on board. So our plan is to read Boy Swallows Universe. I finished my book today, so I will be picking that up tomorrow and starting reading it. So hopefully I can get up to where Beano is. And then we're going to do the crawdad. So if you've read either of those, tune in next season. If you haven't and you're interested, read along with us.
Yeah, totally.
And you can listen to our special episode and send us an email or put comments on our post and tell us what you think of those books.
And if there's any other books that you would like us to sort of read and give our review on, give us your suggestions, because we're open to it. Very much so.
Yes. Well, you know how we were talking about what do we read next, because we know what our next two books are. I totally forgot. I was at my sister's on Saturday night and she showed me this book, and I can't for the life of me think of it, but I'll find out. She reckons she was reading it while she was like walking around the house doing stuff. She'd be dealing with the kids and she's still got this book just reading lines where she could grasp the time to do it because it was that great, she reckons. So excellent. Maybe that's the next one for us.
Yeah, after these two, yeah. Because that was
I'll get
true.
Some more info from her.
Same with Boy Swallows Universe. I'd be reading in bed and I'd get up, walk with the book into the bathroom, turn the light on, have a wee, flash, wash my hands, go back to the bed, keep reading. It was that good.
I've done that when I'm cooking dinner too, and I'm like just stood there stirring, reading, stirring, reading. Don't burn the dinner.
No. So thanks for getting me back into reading. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, you stupid bitch.
So, do you want to go first this week? So, you seem to go first a lot on the true crimes. Do you want to have a swing at it?
Okay, so I'll start then. I am talking about Leonard John Fraser, aka the Rockhampton Rapist. So
I'm very intrigued about this. I don't know much about this at all, if anything.
I've talked about this a few times. I've got that list that I just go through, and every time I see something in the news, I add to it. So every time I'm stuck, I just look through my list. And this one came up, and when I researched it firstly, I was like, I don't know how I feel about doing it. But there's a massive twist to it, which I will get to, that I went, oh my God, I have to do this one. Okay, so Leonard John Fraser was born in June 1951. He's a convicted serial killer, also known as the Rockhampton Rapist. Fraser died of a suspected heart attack at PA, slang for the Princess Alexandra Hospital in Brisbane, aged 55 in 2007. So Fraser had a normal upbringing, but he was functionally illiterate. At 15, he served 12 months in Gosford Boys' Home. Gosford is Central Coast. Isn't it weird how so many times we do stuff and Central Coast comes up, even like after I've moved? So he was done for stealing and he did 12 months in a boys' home. He continued to have trouble with the law from then. He spent time in jail for stealing, robbery, and also living off the earnings of prostitution.
Living off the
earnings of prostitution.
Was he a pimp or did he? I
don't think he was a pimp, but I think he was involved in something that he got some sort of kickback or something when he was quite young.
Maybe he gave a gobby. For $10.
I know he wasn't a prostitute. He was somehow involved, allegedly.
Right.
So then he began his career as a serial rapist. His first victim was a 37-year-old tourist. He hid behind some trees and dragged her where she couldn't be seen and beat and raped her. It became his signature move to twist a woman's arm behind her back and drag them out of view.
And that is fucking painful when that happens. You remember when your siblings would put your arm up behind your back? Fuck, you can't do anything.
And especially the general comparison between a man who's bigger and a smaller woman. Like, that's not hard to get the jump on someone. There were 2 more attempted rapes, and eventually he went before a judge who sentenced him to a maximum of 20 years, parole after 7. So this was just for rape. So if you consider some of the issues that we've heard, probably not so much in the last couple of years, but definitely in the last 10 to 15 years, rape, it doesn't seem to be persecuted
as hard,
very heavily. So he got a really large sentence for this, and this was, years and years ago.
Yeah.
So this was the 80s. It was.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that is strange for that time. Yeah.
Yeah, and 2 of the other cases were alleged. So he was convicted for the tourist one, I believe, and then there was 2 other alleged cases, but there wasn't enough of evidence to convict him. I guess they just knew he was dodgy. So they sentenced him to 22 years parole after 7. So the judge claimed when he sentenced him that he had no conscience. My half your health. I've only had a couple of sips of this disgusting wine. My half your health. So he had no conscience, no impulse control, and nothing to stop him from doing exactly what he wanted. After 7 years, he was released in 1981. My apologies, this was the 70s. He got the 22-year conviction and 7 years parole. A massive sentence, right?
Yeah.
So you have to wonder, some of these cases really intrigue me, especially when we go back really far in time, because internet wasn't around then. So the information is only as good as the retellings of people who have researched it. So you really don't know a lot of the stuff that went back. So I reckon there's a lot more to it. It might have been those days where they just threw the book at him. They might not have been able to convict him, but they knew what he was capable of.
And because she was a tourist as well, maybe it was...
We're putting you away, mate. You're dangerous.
Creating headlines in the other country as well, which looks shit for Australia. So they had to make a big example of him. But
even 7 years for rape back then is a massive amount of time. So he gets out. It's 1981. He moves to Mackay. So he was born in Rockhampton. He moved down to Mount Druitt when he was a child, and then that's how he ended up in the Gosford home when he was in his teens, the juvie. And then he ended up moving back to Mackay after he got out of prison. So by 1985, so he was out in 1981, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can read about things that he allegedly did or didn't. Yeah. No real convictions, though. A lot of dodgy shit. There was one thing about where a neighbour is reported to caught him having sex with a dog.
Oh, God.
It reminds me of the case of that Bernie one, that one of our very first true crime. Remember, he was caught doing stuff
fucking
with animals
dogs
too. Yeah. And then he went on to rape and murder all those women.
Well, it's never a good sign if you're fucking with animals, literally fucking them or killing them when you're younger.
That's some serious red flags happening there. So by 1985, he was quickly found by police after stalking a woman on the beach and attacking and raping her. So followed her along, brutalized her, and the police pretty much got him straight away. He went back to jail for 12 years, being released in 1997. So again, 12 years.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't die, this one. It's a really long sentence.
Yeah.
Considering the time.
And a repeat too. Yeah.
Yeah. So he got out of jail in 1997. He started living with a terminally ill woman who was writing letters to him while he was in prison. That's how he knew her. So he gets out and he moves in with her.
Of course.
She allegedly went to Brisbane for cancer treatment, and he followed her and raped her in hospital, allegedly. He wasn't charged, and she died 6 months later.
Jesus Christ.
I know, right? So in 1999, this is a really awful one. He followed 9-year-old Kira Steinhardt home from school. He then, I've left a lot of this out, a lot of the horrible stuff out. He attacked her and murdered her. A couple witnessed the crime, but were so shook and about what they saw and what to do in the circumstances, and just were completely, I don't know what's happening. It took them 20 minutes before they phoned the police to let them know what they'd witnessed, and it was too late. She was gone. I know, right? And then when the police searched his flat, they found trophies of women, as well as 3 ponytails from women that they never identified
Oh my God.
victims to. Yeah. So Fraser originally confessed to 5 murders in an apparent deal with police to avoid general population. So he spent 20 years out of a 22-year period in prison. A bit like Chopper. Remember when we were talking about Chopper, about how Chopper spent most of his life until he was released much later on in prison. He was rarely out. And when he was out, he caused absolute mayhem.
He'd caused a few mischiefs.
Yeah, he caused a lot of mischiefs. So this guy spent 20 out of 22 years in prison. He wasn't out. When he was out, he hurt and
Was
maimed
doing shit to get back into it, yeah.
Killed a lot of people. So he's back in prison. They know what they've convicted him of the 9-year-old's murder, but they know that there's other things that he's capable of and potentially done. So one of his cellmates, they convinced to question him and try to get some information from him.
Yeah.
He eventually confessed to 4 murders. Sorry, he confessed to 5, but I've only got the names of 4 of them. So it was Beverly Lego, Sylvia Benedetti, and Julie Turner. So he confessed and then led them to their remains. He also confessed to the murder of Natasha Ryan, but she was not found. So her family went on to have a memorial for her, believing that she was deceased.
Poor family.
At his trial, the judge described him as a sexual predator who was dangerous to the community and his fellow inmates. So what happened was he went to jail for the 9-year-old's murder, and then he got consecutive life sentences after he was in jail and revealed that he killed these other women.
Good.
And led them to their graves. But there's still 3 ponytails that are unidentified.
And you don't even know how old the victims were that were attached to the ponytails.
Exactly. So then we're going to move on to Natasha Ryan. So do you remember the girl in the cupboard? Do you remember this story? So Natasha Ryan was born in 1984.
So this is different to the Rockhampton Rapist.
This is one of the girls that he admitted to killing.
Okay, right.
So he said that he killed her and her family held a memorial. So he went to prison. Yeah. In 2000, I think he killed the little girl in 1999 and was in prison by 2020. Sorry, 2000.
Yeah.
2000. And then he confessed to these 5 murderers. Yeah. One of them was Natasha Ryan, and her family went on and had a memorial for her, thinking that she was dead. So she was born in 1984. She's an Australian woman from Rockhampton who went missing on the 31st of August 1998 when she was aged 14. Police had wrongly assumed that her best friend, Mahaya Totoa, who was 15 years at the time of her disappearance, killed her, but they later accused the serial killer, Leonard Fraser.
Was Mahaya a girl or a boy?
Oh, I don't know,
her best friend.
Her best friend. I don't know if it's a girl or a boy. Ryan, however, was discovered alive in 2003 at her boyfriend's house, hiding in a wardrobe almost 5 years after she went missing.
Holy fuck.
And during the trial of the man accused of her murder. So I remember this very, very vividly when she was found. I don't remember her disappearance. I certainly don't remember the Rockhampton Rapist. I don't remember, so he went to prison in 2000. I don't remember him, but I remember her being found because it was massive. So there was all this outcry because it was a waste of resources. Like people had, so her parents were pleading on the news for her to be returned. And then they thought she was dead because he confessed to her murder. And it's amazing that he didn't end up getting acquitted or getting his sentence released, because one of his sentences that kept him in prison after killing the young girl was for the death of Natasha Ryan, and that didn't end up being true. Yeah.
So whose cupboard was she in? Her boyfriend's?
Her boyfriend's. So it was discovered that 14-year-old Ryan had left home willingly to be with her older boyfriend, Scott Black, a 22-year-old milkman, and lived in hiding in his home. In 2008, they married and reportedly have 2 children. Reportedly have 3 children together.
And so
Still
she was
have three
okay with
children.
her best friend being a suspect because of her own.
Yes. And I
Well,
believe the boyfriend was questioned as well. They didn't believe he was a boyfriend. I
yeah,
think he was a person of interest
an
because he
acquaintance or
was
something.
around and he
Yeah.
was seen in certain places. So they definitely questioned him. But as soon as Leonard Fraser admitted to the killing, it's a dead case. There's no point
Yeah.
for them to continue looking for her. And so she went missing in 1998. He went to jail in 1999.
Jeez. And
So
I'd say she was influenced heavily by her 22-year-old boyfriend at 14.
yes, but they're still together. They're married
Yeah.
and have 3 children after all these years. And
Jesus
so
Christ.
there's a bit more to that. So she actually lived in complete and utter hiding. They used to, every time they had to move, so it was 5 years, she was pretending to be dead and murdered. So if they had to move house, they'd move in the nighttime so that he could, get her into a car without people seeing. If someone knocked at the door, she'd hide in the cupboard. I sent you a photo of her hiding in the cupboard.
Yes.
So she never went to the shops. She completely stayed in the house and had all the windows, the curtains closed and everything so that, and they never went out socially and never did anything because they maintained that she wasn't living there. And they were super paranoid that they were going to get caught. But I guess it was like they dug a hole and then it just...
What do you do? Yeah.
Got deeper and deeper and deeper and they didn't know how to get out of it.
Yeah.
So the reason that the police were able to locate her was from an anonymous phone call, a tip-off. So obviously someone either saw her, maybe after 5 years she got a little bit more complacent and was out there out in the garden or something and someone recognised her.
Yeah.
And so someone dobbed them in and said, this is where she is. So the police rock up and then they find her and they're like, you're supposed to be murdered by this brutal serial killer and you're alive.
Who's
and
in
your
jail.
parents had a funeral and a memorial for you.
Yeah, gosh.
So,
I'm guessing her home life must have been a bit shit as well, maybe, or maybe she just
was
didn't.
14.
And she didn't want her parents didn't want her hanging out with the 22-year-old. Yeah.
A 14-year-old having a relationship with a 22-year-old is mature.
It's never good.
It's not, but she mustn't have been a young 14-year-old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's things that come with the relationship that you have with the 22-year-old, like sexual stuff and things like that. She's old enough to go out there. So she's old enough to know better, I think.
Yeah.
But I guess, again, she was running away and then But she would have been gone. I think she wasn't suspected as being murdered by him until he confessed to it several years later. So she'd been gone for a little while before this came up on the news. And it was very widely televised. Like it was a massive story of the time. So after they found her, though, she went on to earn hundreds of thousands of dollars from TV and magazine interviews. Yeah. So Woman's Day paid her $200,000.
And when was it? 2005.
2003.
She was found.
She was found, yes. So in the end, there was calls for her to have to pay some sort of retribution to the government. Yeah. And in the end, they charged her $30,000, I believe. From my research, it could have been more eventually. He ended up doing a suspended sentence. So they did, he had to go before a judge. They gave him, I think, 7 years maybe or 4 years maybe, but he only served like 6 months of it.
Right.
So he got out of good behaviour, basically. So he did go to jail for a little bit.
Jesus Christ. What a bit of a skis, though, to still, even though she might have been a mature 14-year-old. That's gross, isn't it?
I know. And I just think of the poor parents. And yeah, look, you can say, maybe she was abused or maybe she was that, but there's no evidence of that. And she certainly didn't say that when she was found. Yeah. She didn't say I had no choice or I was hiding out of fear of my parents because they used to beat me up or anything. Like none of that's ever come out.
And you would say that to save your face too, if it was true, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. I think she obviously made a really fucking bad choice.
And was fucked from
dumb teenager and just like,
what do I do now? Yeah.
What do I do now? But they were living, when she was found, she was living 2 streets away from her parents. Why wouldn't you move away? Why wouldn't you move to a different... Yeah. So obviously she had a lot of guilt too. Do you know what I mean? I think deep down she was probably like, I can't move too far. because if you really didn't want to be associated with them, you pack up and move across.
You'd be in a different state. Yeah.
You can move to New South Wales. You can move to anywhere in Australia. You can cross the border. You don't need to get carded or show ID or anything like that. There's
way
nothing stopping
pre-COVID
them.
checkpoints. Yeah.
Yeah, the chances of them getting found in Tasmania
are pretty
was
limited.
fuck all. But she's 2 streets away. So
yeah, you're right. Maybe she wanted to do nighttime walks past the house and shit like that.
Maybe in some way she just made a huge mistake and was like, I don't know how to get it. Especially once, it came up that she'd been murdered, and she probably saw it on the news, her memorial, and
her friend
all the people coming forward. Or he or she didn't get done. They were just the primary suspect during the investigation.
Yeah.
So they never got accused or served time or anything like that.
You'd imagine they're not best friends now. They'd be like, you fucking bitch.
You'd imagine she wouldn't be super popular in Rockhampton.
No. Yeah. Fucking Rocky. Yeah. She could totally have fucking just gone to Mackay or somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And considering that there was women who were actually brutally murdered and raped by this horrible man, they'd be like, you claim that you were, and now you're just living free and you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars off interviews and magazine articles. I would imagine there'd be a lot of people who, weren't her fans.
Unhappy. Yeah. Very bitter.
And small town life in Rocky.
Yeah. Oh gosh, no, I don't remember that at all. I was hoping that maybe it was in 2006 or 8. I could say, I was overseas. I don't remember that. That's why. But no, that doesn't ring any bells. I look forward to really checking out the pictures.
I think I remember my parents just being absolutely outraged and just being like, oh my God, this girl's been missing for 5 years and now she's alive and she's been hiding in a fucking cupboard. Her poor parents. Do you ever do that to me, Skye?
Get here, get out the cupboard. No cupboard
I'll
doors.
murder you myself.
I'm taking the doors off all the cupboards. Jesus, a little bitch. That was a good one.
All right, your turn, stupid bitch.
All right. So I'm going to do the Beaumont Children. One of Australia's
This has been on my
greatest.
list. I have thought about doing this, but you've spoken about doing it a few times, so I've left it. So I'm very, very, and I've purposely prevented myself from reading anything because I knew you were going to do it eventually.
Well, I've seen a few specials on it, and I tried to find, there's a documentary on ABC called The Fisherman, and it's a documentary of this dude that may have been involved in it, but they don't know, and all this other nasty stuff. I tried to watch it last night and I was like, I think this might get a bit grisly for me. And chose to finish off the book instead. The Boys Follows Universe book. So on Australia Day, the 26th of January in 1966, siblings 9-year-old Jane, 7-year-old Anna, and 4-year-old Grant Beaumont disappeared from Glenelg Beach near Adelaide in South Australia. Known as the Beaumont Children, the disappearances remained one of the greatest mysteries of Australia, though it is of course believed that they were abducted and murdered, but by who, no one really knows. So several witnesses have claimed they saw the 3 children on the beach with a tall man with fair to light brown hair, a thin face and a suntan complexion in a pair of Speedos. He was of medium build, as was the common attire for men in the 60s.
You wouldn't really abduct and murder children if you were wearing a pair of Speedos, though, right?
Yeah, well, it's more of a board short thing.
Be a rather unlikely culprit. Yeah, just having to swim in my Speedos. I'm going to take these kids with me.
He was of medium build and looked like he was in his mid-30s. Additional sightings of the children were made at a local park and a bakery, and despite the numerous searches, the children or the suspect companion were never located. Now, you've heard of this case before, as you said, and we've seen a number of specials on it. And while it seems crazy for us to think that these 3 kids aged from 4 to 9 were catching a bus to the beach 5 minutes away without supervision, it was the 60s, and that shit happened all the time back then.
Totally.
And it still kind of happened when we were kids, maybe not as young as 9, but still there wasn't the fear of the world, I guess, back then, and not as populated or as scary, or the scariness didn't make it to our ears, as she was saying before about not having the internet and shit.
And little boys were always allowed to do a lot more too. So if you were an older brother with a couple of younger siblings, it was always thought the boys are okay. It's the girls that need, to be protected and watched. The boys are all right. That Boys will be boys.
Yeah, exactly. When we were growing up, I was able to get on my bike, ride around the streets, all that stuff, as long as you stayed in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
It wasn't the kids' first unsupervised visit to the beach. They'd done it before, and Jane, the older sister, was confident with the bus routes. So the poor parents must have had such anguish over it after it happened. This case, however, is widely credited with causing more of a concern in allowing young children to freely roam. So as we said, in the 80s, you ride the streets, you stay in the neighborhood. But back then, it created a bit more fear. The case has attracted so much police and media attention in Australia and across the globe that in 2018, $1 million reward has been offered by the South Australian government for information on the cold case. So like the Easy Street murders case that you discussed, they're getting desperate now because people who may know something are probably getting on and, going to die soon from old age. Anyway. There was a summer heat wave happening in January 1966, and as the Beaumont family lived a short distance from Glenelg Beach, their father, Jim, had previously dropped the kids off to the beach the day prior to their disappearance, before he went on a sales trip to, where do you reckon he went on a sales trip to in Adelaide?
Oh, what's the name? I've forgotten the name of it. The place where the bottles in the barrels were.
Snowtown.
Snowtown.
Yes. I was like, oh my
Always
God.
comes up Snowtown.
Everything was fine. They made it back home. And the next day, the children asked their mother if they could go back to the beach again. As it was too hot to walk, they took the bus, which was a 5-minute journey. They caught the 8:45 a.m. bus and were expected to return home on the 12 p.m. bus, but they didn't show up. After the 2 p.m. bus had been and gone, their mother, Nancy, started to worry. Jim arrived back home early from his trip around 3 p.m. that day and immediately drove to the beach to locate his kids. He wasn't able to find them, so he goes home and both him and his wife start searching the streets and friends' houses. At 5:30 that day, they go straight to the police station to report the disappearance.
Shit.
Police searches.
Getting shivers.
Yeah, police searches commence, searching the beach and the local areas, hoping that the kids had just simply lost their track of time when they were playing. But not finding them, the search area starts growing and growing. Interstate roads, rail lines, and the airport are closely monitored, as I was suspecting a kidnapping. The case gets national recognition less than 24 hours after the children's disappearance. As mentioned, witnesses had seen the kids with the tall man on the beach. They were playing with him and appeared relaxed and enjoying themselves. Apparently, the man also approached one of the witnesses, however, asking if any had been near the children's belongings, as their money was missing. The man then went off to change while the children waited for him, and the group was seen walking together away from the beach sometime later, which the police estimated to be around 12:15 p.m. The parents had described to the police that the children were quite shy, particularly the oldest, Jane. So for them to be confident around a stranger would be out of character. So it's assumed that they must have met the man on previous visits to the beach or knew him through previous connections. The parents also tell the police about a strange statement that Anna, who's the middle child, made at home recently. She told her mother that Jane had, in quotes, got a boyfriend down the beach. The mother thought she was referring to a playmate at the time and took no notice of it until after the disappearance. Another piece of information is when the children visited the bakery, the shopkeeper recalls the children coming in and buying pasties and a meat pie with a £1 note. The reason that this seems strange was that the shopkeeper knew the kids from previous visits and they never bought a meat pie, just the pasties. And also that the mother had only given them 6 shillings and sixpence, which would cover their bus fare and their lunch. So they believed that at this stage, another person was with them that had given them the £1 note. And
you don't just find a £1. Oh, I guess you could on the beach, I suppose, maybe.
But back then, that would be a decent amount of money too.
It would. You're right. And people don't just lose that kind of money as well back in those days.
Yeah, and they'd lost their money too, and now they've ended up with a £1 note. And so they think someone's given it to them, and maybe that person wanted a meat pie and sent them in to get it. But if they had lost their money, this was saying, maybe the dude gave them £1 and maybe they bought a pie because they couldn't afford it previously with the money that they had, usually, who knows? So another sighting that was from a reputable source, the local postman, says he knew the children well and he saw them walking alone, holding hands and laughing at around 3 p.m. that day, away from the beach in the general direction of their home. It was the last confirmed sighting of the children, and the police are unsure why the normally reliable children who were already late were strolling along unconcerned. But they're fucking kids, probably high on
Yeah.
sugar that they brought with the change from the pound note.
And did they have watches on? Like, again, back in
Yeah,
those
exactly.
days,
No, they wouldn't
did
have had
kids
that.
really wear watches? Like, how would
Yeah.
they have known the time anyway?
Yeah. But also, after that, the postman called the police 2 days later saying he actually thinks it was the morning that he saw them, not the afternoon. Like,
Shit.
how do you fuck that up?
Yeah, especially when kids are missing.
Yeah.
Don't give wrong information, dude.
Exactly. No, was it in your afternoon leg of your route or fucking in the morning? Several months later, a woman reported that on the night of the disappearance, a man accompanied by 2 girls and a boy entered a neighbouring house that she had believed was previously empty. Later, she said she had seen the boy walking alone along a lane where he was pursued and roughly caught by the man. The next morning, the house appeared to be deserted again, and she saw neither the man nor the children ever again. Police could not establish why she had failed to provide this information earlier. She waited 2 months to say something. And other reported sightings of the children continued for about a year after their disappearance. So you don't know if it's real or what the fuck's going on.
Yeah. People see what they want to see and do it for attention and all sorts
Exactly.
of things. So
Exactly.
who knows?
International psychics got involved in the case, but never yielded
Ooh,
anything
okay.
of substance. None of this psychic's leads actually led anywhere. The parents received hoax letters years after the disappearance, apparently written by Jane, the oldest daughter, and another by a man who said he was keeping the children. The envelopes had a postmark of Dandenong, Victoria. And it gets pretty serious as they felt the letter from Jane may have been authentic after comparing the handwriting. And the letter from the man said he had appointed himself as guardian of the children and was willing to hand them back to their parents. A meeting place was nominated and the parents drove to the designated place, followed by a detective. But when they arrived, no one was there, which is just fucking terrible because you can imagine how the parents are thinking, we're going to get them back, blah, blah, blah. No one's there.
How many years later was this?
This is years later. I think it's about 3 years, 2 to 3 years afterwards. Shortly after the meeting, a third letter arrived that was penned from Jane, saying that the man had realized a disguised detective was present and he decided to keep the children because the parents had betrayed their trust, and no further letters were received. However, in 1992, further forensic examinations were undertaken with new improved technologies, and they were able to extract fingerprints from the letter, identifying that the author was in fact a now 41-year-old man who was a teenager at the time of the disappearance and apparently written the letters as a joke. Due to the elapsed time, no charges were made. But it just seems weird to me that he knew about the detective following them. So was he actually there really watching, like the teenager? Did he know the kids? Were the kids alive? Was he someone who was trying to help the kids?
Yeah.
But he didn't want to get the perpetrator into trouble. Could it have been his father, and so he couldn't reveal anything? You just never fucking know,
Yeah.
Like, I think they're gone and maybe didn't go to Dandenong, but like the staircase, weird shit happens sometimes.
But also, like, 3 bodies, it's quite, I mean, look, bodies could be put anywhere really if you're careful enough to dispose of them, but it's a lot of effort to go into dispose of 3 bodies that never get found again.
Yeah.
Like, you'd have to go deep into the bush where no one's ever going to show up. And like, it seems like they were somewhere just
where
taken.
Yeah.
Like, living a different life and maybe conditioned to never reveal themselves.
Yeah, and they weren't murdered on sight, because if they were, you would have seen some evidence. As you said, there's 3 of them, so there would have been some evidence.
And also, you don't give kids money either. So someone's given them money, but it could have been unrelated. It could have been the man in the bathing suit. He didn't take them. He gave them money because they lost their money and said, get me a pie. And then he left them because they were going home, and then it was someone else who took them.
Exactly. You just don't know. And then the guy who's in the bathing suit's like, fuck, I'm not going to fucking come forward because
they're going to pin it on me.
Yeah.
But you think if he was really old as well, that he would come forward if he was innocent now, especially like if he was ready to die on his deathbed, he would tell someone at least.
True. Yeah, because he was in his mid-30s back then. So some of the possible named suspects are Bevan Spencer von Einem. So this guy was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1984 for murdering 15-year-old Richard Kelvin.
Okay.
Police and prosecutors publicly state that they believe von Einem had accomplices and was publicly involved in additional murders. Sorry, I've got a cat that's misbehaving. My mama's podcast.
I closed the door on my cat earlier because he was being a complete utter arsehole.
So during the investigation into von Einem, police heard from an informant identified as Mr. B. He relayed an alleged conversation in which von Einem boasted of having taken 3 children from a beach several years earlier, and said he had taken them to home. Oh, this gets a bit dark too. He had taken them home to conduct experiments. He said that he performed a brilliant surgery on each of them and had connected them up. One of the children had supposedly died during the procedure, and so he had killed the other 2 and dumped all the bodies in bushland south of Adelaide. Police had not previously considered von Einem in connection with the Beaumont Children, but he somewhat resembled the descriptions from the witnesses back in '66. He was also known for frequenting Glenelg Beach to perv in the changing rooms, and was apparently preoccupied with children. I got caught in a bit of a wormhole or a rabbit hole. What do they call it?
Wiki hole.
A wiki hole with this guy. And you could do an episode on him alone, but it's very dark shit. Mr. B had given important...
So what happened to him?
So he was in jail because he was sentenced to life imprisonment in '84 for murdering 15-year-old Richard Kelvin.
Mm.
So Mr. B...
So he never got out, he died in jail, or is he still alive?
I don't know, actually. But Mr. B had given important information during the investigations into Kelvin's murder and was regarded as a generally reliable source. However, police reception of the alleged confession was mixed. I think because it was just so fucking whack and out there. There was enough plausible details to warrant further research, yet other details relayed by Mr. B did not fit with known facts and were regarded with skepticism by police. He also didn't match the age of the guy who the kids were seen with. In '66, von Einem would have been 20, 21, not in his mid-30s, but you know, like...
But the kids could have been seen with a good Samaritan who was just there helping them find their money. Yeah. It could have been completely unrelated. He could have gone home and it was some other rando who's there.
Or he could have been a fucking...
Didn't match the description doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, and he could have been an old-looking 20-year-old, you know. But he's a pretty foul-looking fella all the same. And as of 2014, von Einem had not been ruled out as a suspect. And interestingly enough, in August 2007, it was reported that police were examining archival footage from the original Beaumont search shot by Channel 7 that shows a young man resembling von Einem among the onlookers. The report said the police were calling for information to establish the man's identity. Another potential suspect, Harry Phipps. Phipps bore a substantial likeness to the identikit of the man who was seen talking to the Beaumont children at Glenelg Beach. He was wealthy and known to be in the habit of giving out £1 notes, and was later alleged to have pedophile tendencies. He lived only 300 metres away from the beach. His son, who was aged 15 at the time of the disappearance, came forward to researchers in 2007 with the claim that he had seen the children in his father's yard that day. 2 other persons, youths at the time, said they had been paid by Phipps to dig a 2x1 by 2 metre hole in his factory yard that weekend for unstated reasons. In November 2013, a 1 metre squared section of a factory in North Plimpton, which had been owned by Phipps, was excavated, and a ground-penetrating radar found one small anomaly, which had indicated movement or objects within the soil. But the dig found no additional evidence, and investigations into the site were closed. On 22 January 2018, Adelaide detectives announced that they would return to the factory site and conduct further excavations after a private investigation sponsored by Channel 7 Adelaide. The excavation took 9 hours. Animal bones and general rubbish were found, but nothing related to the Beaumont case. There is a number of other prime suspects in the case, all truly horrible men who have been convicted for terrible crimes since, but a lot of them don't match the age of the person the kids were seen with or weren't in the area at the time. And lots of other cases that they feel may have been connected, such as an abduction of kids at the Adelaide Oval and other child murders. But again, nothing concrete. So as I was saying earlier, the kidnapping is viewed by many social commenters as a significant event in the evolution of Australian society, with a large number of people changing the way they supervise their children daily. At the time, it was never publicly suggested that the children should not have been allowed to travel unsupervised or that the parents were anyway negligent. Simply because contemporary Australian society took it for granted that it was safe and acceptable. However, this case, alongside similar child-related crimes, marked an end of innocence in post-war Australian life. The fact that the mystery of the disappearance has never been explained have led to the story being continually revisited by the media. New leads and clues are regularly reported by the media, and the case still regularly headlines print and broadcast media more than half a century on.
Yeah.
So the parents, they initially remained at their home. The mother in particular held hope that the children would return one day.
You would, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it'd be horrible just not knowing. And she stated that it would be dreadful if the children returned home and did not find their parents waiting for them. They were devastated in 1990 when newspapers had published computer-generated photographs of how the children would look as adults today.
Oh, stop it.
The pictures, which were published against their wishes, caused a huge wave of public sympathy from the community, which is still sensitive to the pain. The couple later divorced and lived separately, having resolved to live their final years away from the public attention that followed them for decades. The Beaumonts were reported to have accepted that the truth of their children's disappearance may never be discovered. Nancy died in Adelaide on the 16th of September 2019 in a nursing home, aged 92, whereas Jim, also aged in his 90s, continues to reside in Adelaide.
Oh my God, I can't believe a newspaper would have
had the audacity.
That.
Yeah.
How disgraceful.
Yeah. Like give it to the police or whatever for them to have as something to go off in case, you know, they see you around somewhere, someone that matches that description on what they might look like today.
I guess removed from it though, if that was their intention, it wasn't. Their intention was always to sell
papers. Yeah.
Of course. But I guess if they were alive, it could have been helpful in locating them if they, you know, didn't remember where they came from or, you know, something traumatic had happened for them to repress their memories or, you know.
If they had been conditioned, as you said, like fucking brainwashed into. Because you remember that case that was in America, and there was a TV movie on it called I Know My First Name is Stephen. It was about a kid who got abducted as a child, and he was gone for like 10, 15 years or something.
I know the one, yeah.
And then the abductor kidnapped another little kid as this guy was older, and he knew that's when he had to stop and do something and broke out.
And he dyed his hair all the time, didn't he? He was a blondie and he used to dye his hair brown all the time. So it was a brunette. So they never tried. And then the little kid came along and they started dyeing his hair brown. He used to help him dye the kid's hair brown.
And that's why
he knew why it was happening.
And that's why it's like, we've got to get him out. And he saved that little kid. Do you know his brother in real life ended up being a serial killer, a mass murderer in Yosemite National Park? So the
oldest one who got kidnapped.
Yeah, so Stephen's older brother ended up being a murderer as well, and like a proper murderer, not like a thuggery or something like that, where it was just a situation gone too far, premeditated, and so his fucking parents.
But they say like kids who go through that when a sibling is taken, their lives are just ruined as well because the parents check out after that.
Yeah,
just completely check out and just. Like, you know, a shell.
Yeah.
And
would have all their attention's going to finding the other child, and
they have no emotion for the other child.
Yeah.
You know, they don't, you know, they're just so, you know, not that's justification, but.
No, I know what you mean. That's just fact. Yeah.
It's horrific. Life could be fucked for people. Apparently.
I know. The poor, like, I feel for the family. Obviously, you feel for the victims and all that shit, but the fucking parents of Stephen and the mass murdering other son.
Yeah. Look, I got to say, I think this is another one where I think that the police dropped the ball.
Yeah.
You know, they were so focused on the
On
witness
one person.
being the guy. I mean, not the witness, the guy that was seen with the children being the guy. All their searches and all their investigations seem to be centered around this image of this person.
And they've missed opportunities and probably missed other leads that were given to them because it had nothing to do with this.
Yeah, but I agree, like, you would normally come forward if you were that person. But TV, magazines, you know, it wasn't like it was in 1966. It was a completely different situation.
And maybe the guy had, and I'm just really speculating, but could have had mental issues as well. You know, that's why he's hanging out and playing with kids.
Yeah.
You know.
Or it was just a case of him walking past, the little girl was crying because she lost their money and they couldn't get lunch. He's like, oh, they're crying. You guys okay? Can I help you?
Well, he was seen playing with them and then getting changed while they waited for him. So maybe that's what he's doing, making him happy, go and get changed, go to the bakery. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
He said,
knows?
wait for me, I'll get changed so that I can buy you lunch. And then he says, okay, well, you get on your bus. I'll see you later.
See you
and
later.
then it's someone else who comes in and fucking
who's been watching
them
them from afar. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, it's fucked, eh?
Well, thanks for listening to this week's episode of Stupid Bitches Say What. We hope you enjoyed our grisly stories on true crime.
Next week, we are popping into some culture as we bop along to musical legend Kate Bush and the dark and sometimes too real world of The Handmaid's Tale. Don't forget, if you like what you hear, tell your mates. Share, like, subscribe, and repeat. Bye, stupid bitches.
Bye, stupid bitches. I love that bit. We are popping into some culture as we bop along to musical legend Kate Bush. It's very clever. It's quite an alliteration there, isn't it?
It is poetic. Kate deserves it. All right.
Night, stupid bitches.
Night.
That stupid bitch. He's a stupid bitch. What a stupid bitch. That stupid bitch.